What's up, guys? My name is Marcus Huskins, and thank you for joining me. As always, if you're enjoying this content, please go ahead and do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, and I appreciate your support. I spend a lot of time doing videos on showing people how to do things, but I don't spend a lot of time doing videos on showing people why to do things. And I thought I would kind of launch a new playlist talking about why you should consider doing something. So in this case, we're going to be talking about cue mixes. Now, I've already done videos, and I'll make sure that I put a link to a video in the description of the blog article. In addition to that, other content creators have done videos on how to set up cue mixes in Studio One. So I don't want to cover that, but what I do want to cover is why you might consider wanting to do that. Now, I've made a recent purchase for my studio, and it's actually an older item. It's a PreSonus Central Station Plus, and I've been really wanting to get one of these for a long time. Not just for the use of being able to hook up multiple different speakers and different interfaces, but also because it has some really clever routing and it allows me to do things differently with respect to my video content. So through the power of routing and the central station, I'm actually able to patch in things that I'm listening to my headphones in a stream that can be recorded by ScreenFlow. Let's take a listen to this track over here. I've got a section looped out. I want to take a listen to the main mix that I would be listening to in the control room or on a set of closed back headphones if I was in the same room with people and we were recording. Let's have a quick listen. Okay, so we have our main instrumental, we have some palmas in the background, and then we have a click track. So this is something that I would consider to be a pretty decent mix for me to be listening to. It sounds balanced, I can hear the click, but it's not overly bearing. Now, I have two different cue mixes set up. If we go to my I/O setup in my outputs, you can see I have line out 1, 2, which is routed to an HP4. And then I have, I'm actually just using the SPDIF because I'm actually using the headphone routing to be able to listen to that SPDIF source. But needless to say, let's just assume that there's two separate cue mixes that have been set up and they've been enabled as a cue mix. Now, I have two different mixes that have been created. So in addition to the main mix is the one that I'm listening to in the control room. The guitarist has a mix, and then also the percussionist has a mix. I want to talk about why you might consider setting one up. So again, let's listen to my mix. Again, this is a really good balanced mix, and it allows me to hear things in context, and I can also hear the click. Let's go over to the percussionist's mix. Very different. This mix, the background track is pretty much buried, and we have a really prevalent kick, or rather click track, and then we have a lot in terms of the live input that they would be monitoring. Let's switch back to the main mix. So here's our balanced mix again, the one that I'm listening to in the control room. Now let's hop over to the guitarist's mix. Listen to this one. In this case, I don't have any click. I have his guitars are prominent, and then also anything that's happening in terms of the palmas, that's kind of laid back in the mix. We'll go back to the main mix now. So the thing to point out here is not only do we have different metronome levels, which are actually set on the outputs. If you're not seeing this, you want to click the outputs tab over here. Not only do we have these different click levels and click being active versus inactive, but if you have like maybe a bass player or a guitarist and you're doing some guitar overdubs, if you already have a really solid foundation of the groove, then with the exception of a pre-count off the top, they might not actually need to hear a click. It might mess them up. So in this case, the guitarist mix, he's hearing more guitars, no click, and then he's hearing the background track. And again, we'll go back to the percussion player's mix. Lots of click. Background tracks in terms of the guitar and all the instrumentation is down, but you can still hear it. But a really big focus on the click here and making sure that he can hear his live active input. And then my mix is the main mix, and in this case I've got a little bit of click. Maybe we'll bring it up a little bit. So that is why, because certain performers, if you're trying to get a really great take from them, it would make sense to give them a custom mix where you're giving them exactly what they hear. Like I say, a drummer or a percussion player, something where the groove is really important. They don't have to be right on the click in terms of playing static and having no groove, but they do need to hear solid downbeats and any subdivisions that they might want to hear. And then they obviously need to be able to hear the track that they're recording pretty loud in the mix. And then they need to hear enough of the background elements that they can still keep in time, but they want to be focusing on their performance. And then, like I said, most of the time I will try to get away with giving everybody the mix that I'm listening to. But if any changes need to be made and if they ask for a custom mix, this is some of the reasons why you might want to consider doing it. Now, one last thing I want to point out is I actually have a fat channel in the post section of each one of these outputs. And for this one, my mix, you can see that I'm just tickling the bus compressor and I'm giving a little bit of EQ. Really hard to hear that because there's barely anything happening there. But then on the other channels, for example, for the percussionist mix, I just have a limiter engaged here. And then on the guitarist's mix, I have a limiter engaged there as well. So that is why you might want to consider giving a different mix to different performers based on the track and based on what they need and what they need to hear. They might require a custom mix, and this will be a good thing because it will allow them to be in the pocket, make sure they can hear themselves properly, and in the case where they need to hear a click, they can hear that properly, but in the case where they don't need to hear it and they just need to lock to the rhythm, you can send out different amounts from the Q-Mix amounts by just simply unlocking these. We can create custom mixes. And this is made even easier now with one of the most recent updates of Studio One being version 4.5.5. They gave us full control over Q-Mix when using fader port control surfaces. Anyways, that's all the time I have available for today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Any questions or comments, leave them down below. I will do my absolute best to get back to you. And as always, we will catch you in the next video. Cheers.